This Parsha, Shemot, is also a momentous Parsha. It's central to who we are as Jewish people. As I mentioned, it's the start of our story as a people. And it feels like the right Parsha to be sharing a drush about as a fresh rabbi, because it contains the narrative of Moses waking up to his call that serves as a model for all of us to awaken to our own call in life. And as a treat, as a sneak peek, those of you who've been here on Shabbats that I've been with us know that we've called up Chazan Steve to share a song at the end, and we're going to hear a new tune. Chazan Steve introduced it before, but didn't share that it's a tune that he wrote that is really so beautiful for Hit Oreri, on this theme of waking up to our calling, like Moshe does in the Parsha, and like we're all doing, from Lecha Dodi that we'll hear, that are inspired by conversations that we were having around this Parsha, which I will fill you in on. To remind us of the context, at the close of last week's Parsha, Jacob's family is safely resettled in Egypt, escaping famine thanks to Joseph's intervention. At the start of Shemot, a new Pharaoh arises that doesn't know Joseph and only sees our people as a threat. We are enslaved for generations. Women feature prominently. Hebrew midwives refuse commands to kill male Hebrew children, allowing Moses to be born. Sent off in a basket on the Nile, Moses is rescued by Pharaoh's daughter, looked after by Miriam, his sister, and nursed by his mother Yocheved. Moses grows up with affluence and privilege in Pharaoh's house. All the while, he remains sensitive to the injustices in the world around him. He takes decisive action and has to flee all the way to the land of Midian. Now, a shepherd, Moses is ready to be transformed by a divine encounter with the burning bush that I want to focus on for a model for us to hear that divine call to wake up to our own lives and their fullness. It's an important reminder now as we enter into a tender moment. We don't know what it will be like for the hostages to return. We don't know how many will be alive and how many will be dead. There will be awful aspects that will leave us aflame with anger and with grief, and mundane information that we may overlook. I see this narrative in the Parsha as a reminder to wake us up to the fullness of this uncertain time, with both its joy and its difficulty. As we noted, Moses remains sensitive to issues of injustice to his people, and held with care in his heart for others who were in pain. Now, Moses, in the Parsha, finds himself in a caring profession. My mom always tells me, who's seated here in the front, Aaron, you should go into a caring profession. And Moses finds one as a shepherd, caring for his flock every day. And it takes him out of town, out into the wilderness regularly. The moment of calling that Moses receives happens in Achar Hamidbar, the very back ends of the wilderness. It's a potent place, outside of regular flow and expectation. The wild is greatly valued in the Torah. It's the place of prophecy and connection. Right? It's where the Torah is revealed, in the desert, in the wilderness. Of course, in our lives, we also benefit from having expectations and boundaries that make us safe. And I think it's interesting that Moses provides these too in the eventual building of the Mishkan, the tabernacle that puts holiness in the center of our people and provides expected and dependable opportunities for connection. Sanctuary and wild. We need both, and Moses brings both to us. As a spiritual leader, I'm often trying to get people to the sanctuary, to shul. And to us here today, you don't need to hear that. You're in shul already. But because we're here, I remind us that we also need the other, that shul needs to be balanced with other places where we find God, perhaps wild places in the natural world that surrounds us, and to bring those experiences into our davening and life at shul. I know for me, I find those connections in the ravine and by Lake Ontario. And you probably know where it is that you find those own places of connection in your neshama, in your soul. Back to the Parshah, Rabbi Yossi says that in the Zohar, that Moshe was drawn to the location of the burning bush like a magnet drawn to iron. What draws you that way in your life? Where do you feel the pull like a magnet to iron? Maybe it's through music, through relationship, in quiet, with crowds. That place that you're drawn to is a potent place to seek out connection with God. We can trust these intuitions. We say in the Siddur, Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. Our souls and our desires come from a place of purity, and we hold them in the frame of mitzvah, the holy commandments, to make sure that we are safe and well held. Now, in the desert, it's dry. Shrubs, little bushes catch fire regularly. Moses, as a shepherd, probably sees that all the time, but he's practicing paying attention. At this bush or shrub, Moses says to himself, he doesn't say, just another burning bush. He says, Asura na ve'ereh. I will pause. I will turn aside and see. I will really look at what's happening here. Right now, even if it might not seem so exceptional. And then he notices that the bush is not consumed. And that subtle noticing, that takes time. And God notices that Moses has paused to pay attention. From that attentive place, God calls, Moshe, Moshe, you, yes you, I see you paying attention. And Moses proves that he's ready with his answer, Hineni, I am here in my fullness. And also with his flaws that he's quick to acknowledge to God. God then is able to share some more useful tips for stepping into one's calling. God says, Shal na'alecha me'al raglecha. Take off your shoes because you're on holy ground. The Baal Shem Tov rereads this as Shal man'ulecha. Take off your locks, right? Like from the same root as ni'ilah. Me'al hergalecha, from off of your habits. We all have patterns and habits that we fall into that lock us down. Unless we are present, like Moses, really turning aside to see what's in front of us and saying Hineni, we can become reactive, living only out of our habits. God says, leave those habits behind so that I can fully tell you your task. But before I can tell you the task, an introduction. God says to Moses, let me introduce myself. I am Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov. Maybe this sounds familiar. Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov. We reference this conversation that God and Moses have every time we say the Amidah. Why not just Elohei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov? Why Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov? The rabbinic explanation is that each of our ancestors, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, had to find their own way of connecting to Elohim, to God. And it's a point to Moses that you need to find your own unique way to find a relationship with me. And we all do. That's what we reference every time we enter the Amidah. Can we find our own relationship, our own unique way to God? And Moses wants to know How can I communicate this to others? What will I tell them when they ask, who sent me? How can I wake others up now that I'm beginning to wake up? And I think it's a good question for me as a rabbi, trying to wake us up here today. But it's also a question for all of us. We all need to try to find that Moses aspect within us. Once you found something that wakes you up, how can you share it with others? And I'm encouraged because Moses, right, you may think, oh, how do I share the things that are important to me? Moses also says, God, I can't do it. But God tells him, you don't do this alone. Your brother Aaron is going to be with you. So we start small, with connections with others. We start in a personal place. The place where all of this is happening is called Chorev, which is later called Sinai. Starting in the personal and then becoming bigger. All right, and this is the reference, I think, to the bush, which is called the sneh, that's burning, is the same root, sounds the same as Sinai. The place of this little burning can grow into huge revelation. Right, and this, I think it's so beautiful, this image of the sneh, this burning bush, this little revelation. I think this is how it works for me. When we have moments of inspiration, we need to encode them into images and symbols that we can use to return back to. Because sometimes we're not in the same headspace as when we were inspired. We find ourselves in a different place. We need something to grasp onto. So we have this image of a little bush with branches that are aflame. Where else do we have this image of branches with fire? It's the menorah. Right? It's the image of the menorah that is encoded in all of this to wake us up to what's here. Right? I think it's no wonder that the state of Israel chose the menorah as the symbol of the state to remind us of all these things. Pay attention to what's here. Loosen our habits. Don't get stuck. Practice paying attention. Don't do this alone. Do this work so it can help others. This is all the precursor to Exodus, to freedom, redemption. Today, as we have the possibility for freedom for the hostages so close, we see our own work, our rallying, our prayers, our working together towards justice as precursor to their return and freedom, Be'ezrat Hashem, with God's help, speedily brought home. For the sake of justice, and also so that we can begin to heal our own broken hearts and shattered souls, so that we can fully do this work of waking up. And to be realistic, in the Torah, after every awakening, there is also hardship. After Moses awakens to his call, hardships with the people getting angry at him that we read about today. Plague after plague not succeeding. After Sinai, our national awakening, more hardships. Golden calf complaining, 40 years of wandering. The Torah reminds us the path is long, so we support and resource each other, so that hasneh eneno ukal, so that the bush, us, the Jewish people, are not consumed. We persist. Our light persists through the hardships, to keep trying to wake us up, to wake the whole world up, to holiness, love, and justice. These themes of awakening, of being with what is here, of hearing our call, are the themes of Shabbat. We sing on Friday night in the Lecha Dodi, a song of belovedness that includes the line, Hitoreri, Hitoreri, wake up, kiva orech, because your light has come.